Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Behind the Curtain. We have a very, very special guest here this evening, and I'm coming to you live from the Phoenix Theater Company's lobby and bar extravaganza. Tonight, our special guest has once been acclaimed by the New York Times as a director with a joyous touch. Oh my God, I love that. Because that is so much about what the Phoenix Theater Company is to find the joy in life, the positivity, the human connection. That is so extraordinary to me, the heroic achievements of the individual. And that is what our incredible guest is, all the way through. He has been a director of operas, musical theater, film, special events, television. He runs the gamut. He has been the associate director of Susan Stroman. So his Broadway credits include being the associate director of Bullets Over Broadway, Big Fish, The Scottsboro Boys, Hair, and Young Frankenstein, just to name a few. His national tour credits include Hairspray, Bullets Over Broadway, Rockin' Road to Dublin, and The Producers, and many, many more. He has created the world premieres of Loch Lomond, Chasing Rainbows, Fly More Than You Can Fall, and has directed all over the country in regional theaters, including the Phoenix Theater Company, which is why he comes here tonight with us. We have had the profound joy of having him here to direct the Scottsboro Boys and The Sound of Music. So let's take a trip down memory lane and witness a couple of clips from those two productions.
Hey, look what we got for you. Come on, gather around. Hey, you won't be able to keep your toes from zippy tapping over the ground. Sit back now, relax and get comfortable. Set the town aside. Hey, say hello to the minstrelsmen here to entertain you tonight.
Mr. Tambo, how are you feeling tonight?
It's fine, but I think that lady in the front row is shocked. She just never seen so many big black buttons.
Mr. Tambo, she's just not used to seeing you in those clothes.
And I ain't used to seeing her in hers. Hey, I play all kinds of characters. Tambo, he does too. I do. Mean men, keen men, white men's our specialty. Even those who know don't always know who is who. Sing along or tell us a joke if you want to. That's all right. Hey, join in the merriment. Everyone the minstrel tonight.
You are 16, going on 17, baby. It's time to think. Better be very canny and careful, baby. You're on the brink. You are 16, going on 17. Fellows will fall in line. Eager young lads and runaways and cads will offer you food and fire. Totally unprepared are you to face a world of men. Timid and shy and scared are you of scenes beyond your ken. You need someone older and wiser telling you what to do. I am 17, going on 18. I'll take care of you.
It was great to see those two shows once again. Fills my heart with joy. Jeff has created productions for Glimmer Glass Opera, Disney, and directed the film premiere of The Chronicles of Narnia. And this just scratches the surface of all that he has accomplished. In addition, he is an entrepreneur. He's the inspiration and artistic director behind Open Jars Institute, a musical theater intensive for young adults in New York City, as well as the Open Jar Studios, providing a much need for rehearsal space for large show productions in New York City, including most of the big Broadway shows, all of which were happening until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, wham, nobody knew, nobody saw it coming, and New York City was particularly hard. This is when Jeff sort of changed course as an entrepreneur and changed his studios into a factory for COVID relief. So you can imagine the accomplishments of this individual. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jeff Whiting.
Hi, hello, good to see you.
Hello, Jeff, how are you?
I'm very well, it's so good to see you again.
So good to see you too. So good to see you too. I want to pivot back to Scottsboro Boys for just a moment.
Yeah.
We did Scottsboro Boys, as you recall, with the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy at Arizona State University, as well as the Black Theater Troupe. And it was a remarkable collaboration to say the least. Each night, the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy held a talk back, really getting into the impact of the audiences as they witness this remarkable and intense production. I'd like to hear from you, Jeff. What was the effect of Scottsboro Boys across this country? Because you were involved in many productions.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Scottsboro Boys was a life-changing experience, not just for me, but for so many who witnessed the show. I'm embarrassed to admit that before I was invited to be involved with the production, I wasn't aware of that part of our American history. And so learning about what happened to these young men and the devastating things they were accused of, and being a precursor to all the things that followed, it was an amazing experience for me to learn about that part of our history, but to create then a piece of theater surrounding it was unlike any other experience I've had in the theater. Most shows, you dig in and you believe in the script and the story and the message it tells. This was unlike any other show because we were telling an ugly piece of American history, and with cast members who felt the impact of that story in their personal lives. And so to see those young men on the off-Broadway and then Broadway company and every production since, including the one we did at the Phoenix Theater a few years ago, it changes you. It's not like any other theatrical production. It certainly changed my point of view about the matters of race, and just understanding that what you do and what you say has more impact than you think. And so to see really up close that effect, that this musical created was pretty remarkable. I mean, here on Broadway, we had protests that occurred every Saturday night. And so being involved in something that was such a hot button issue, what really caused me to look inside myself and just recognize, the privilege that I enjoy just by being born the way I was, and to understand just a small piece of, what these young men went through, in our real American history.
Thank you for that. EDI has become a tremendously important topic of late, as if it wasn't always an important topic, but it has certainly come to the forefront, in particular in the arts. We have been recently, the Phoenix Theater Company has recently been going through strategic planning for the next 4 years. This is one of the winning moves, top winning moves, is EDI. How can we as a company improve on so many levels the equity and diversity and inclusion of people of color throughout every aspect of our business, from actors and designers to staff to board members to designers to the likes of everything. So important. And it is very important for us to also present works that have a controversial message to them, to some people. We have been proud to do such works as Hedwig and the Angry Inch, Fun Home, Memphis, Billy Elliot, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, Hairspray, Kinky Boots, and also Americana, a new musical about a young individual who was brought across the border at the age of 2 and never knew that he was not a citizen of the United States. He was brought across the border from Mexico. We're also looking forward to an upcoming show in our next season, The Color Purple. So the musical theater genre has taken on a number of occasions, very sensitive subject matters. Jeff, how has musical theater, and what has musical theater done to help make these sensitive subjects more accessible?
Well, I think you're right. The focus that we're placing on it now is so important. I think one of the things I love most about musical theater is that it breaks the rules of real life. And in real life, you don't break into singing and dancing, although I do in my personal life. But musical theater allows us this freedom to express in a different way the emotions that we may be going through. In no other genre is there really an opportunity for time to stop and for the main character to then sing 4 or 5 minutes of a song of their inner feelings. And so musical theater, just as a genre of its own, allows greater expression of emotion and thoughts and intents, than we might just gain from, a film, where you might read into their subtext. We actually get to crack open time and listen to characters. So I think musical theater has a really wonderful power in it to be able to tackle the subject matter. I was involved with the national tour of Hairspray, and I've directed that many times. And that also has a very poignant message, when it comes to race and diversity and inclusion. That's what the story actually is about. And so to be able to hear the main character, Tracy Turnblad, just state and sing about, why can't I just dance with my friends?
Right.
It makes a difference, and it has a song, when you hear the tune and it lands on your heart, it has a greater impact than just hearing the words. And so I think I'm very lucky to work in the world of musical theater where we can really create a powerful message through musical theater. So I think it has a unique power.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say that when we did produce Americana, which happened to be the last show that we actually did before COVID came down on us, the impact to our audience was great because we tried very hard to make this musical a human story as opposed to a political one. I think that when you're looking at shows like Hairspray, Kinky Boots, and Memphis, and etc., they too have gone a long way to make these stories human stories and present them as a human story. Thereby, in the case of like Americana, conservative and progressive views alike, both were able to witness the show, see the show, not become defensive on any way, shape, or form, and be able to converse and accept the situation and maybe look at the situation in a different way than they did before. Would you agree that this is what, for the most part, how these kinds of musicals have been presented to an audience?
Oh, yes, I absolutely agree. I think back to so many times at the end of Scottsboro Boys, when we did it at Phoenix, when we did it on Broadway. It's not the kind of theater you just go and say, oh, that was lovely, and don't talk about it. It's the kind of thing you leave in an active conversation about, how did that feel and how did that make you feel? And I think it's an incredible medium that allows us to address these subjects in a very personal and poignant way.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to pivot a little bit to your entrepreneurial side, your business-minded side. Tell us a little bit about the Open Jar Studios.
Yeah, sure. Well, the Open Jar Studios is located right in the heart of Times Square. We have 50,000 square feet of rehearsal space, and it was originally intended to house. I run a theater training program called the Open Jar Institute. We house that here, but we're lucky to have a really unique footprint here, unique in New York, in that there's no columns. Usually buildings in New York have columns every 15 feet, and this building has very few columns. So we're able to create the largest rehearsal space in New York City. So we are very often home to developing Broadway musicals from all stages of development, from their readings and workshops to rehearsals that are, the rehearsals that happen just before Broadway shows go into their tech and their Broadway theater. So we are normally home to lots of Broadway shows that are just getting ready to go, or they're at the very beginning stages. So we're very lucky to be right here in the heart of Times Square.
Yeah, to that end, I'd like to share a little video about Open Jar Studios, just so the audience that is watching can really take in what you have been able to create. So let's take a look. Is that amazing or what? To be able to have that much space to be able to create art in is remarkable. Well, then COVID hit, right? And we didn't see it coming. I know that New York City didn't see it coming, as the rest of the country to follow. But you did something remarkable when the studio closed. Can you tell us a little bit about the COVID relief project that you did?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's so fascinating to see the studios as they were prior to COVID. But I was, when March 12th hit and, we announced that, things were going to be shutting down, I was walking around those studios we just looked at in the video there and turning off the lights, turning off the air conditioning, not really knowing when we might be back. And while I was walking around turning off the lights to the studios, I got a call from the New York governor's office, a friend of mine who worked in the office, who said, we keep hearing that Broadway wants to help and nobody's really organized anything. And if I know anything about you, Jeff, you're good at organizing. And would you mind helping just put together a phone call with some of the leaders from the Broadway community with the governor's office? And so, of course, I said yes. And that led to a series of phone calls and emails. And I ended up on a phone call with the New York City Economic Development Corporation. And they were charged with making 10 million hospital gowns for New York City public hospitals. And so on this phone call, she said to me, do you have the capability to mass produce gowns? And of course I flipped right to, well, we have all these people that normally make Broadway costumes. And I had already kind of started reaching out to thinking we would be making masks. And I had over 700 people saying, yes, I'll help, I'll help. And so on the spot there in that meeting, I said, well, look, I have a huge space here. We could actually turn this could become basically our home base. And so essentially we turned the Open Jar Studios into a factory making PPE. We made over 50,000 hospital gowns for the New York City public hospitals. And in the process of that, we ended up hiring over 400 individuals from the Broadway community, including costume designers, stage managers, stitchers, all kinds of different people that really bonded together. And in under 60 days, we made 50,000 hospital gowns for the New York City public hospitals.
Of course, we're thrilled to have people back here as part of the Phase 2 opening, but in truth, Open Jar Studios never really did shut down. Right upon the shutdown, we were enlisted immediately by the city to be part of a task force that would work to create
over 2 million medical gowns for New York City public hospitals. And so we enlisted over 400 people from the Broadway community, designers, stitchers, stage managers, actors, casting directors. We've been here around the clock for the past few months. And as such, we've been able to create a pretty robust set of protocols, cleaning and protocols for our staff, which we're just keeping in place as we enter phase 2. That includes anybody who comes to the studios, they immediately get their temperature taken with a non-contact infrared thermometer. Anybody who has a fever is not allowed into the space. Also, if you've knowingly been exposed to the virus in the last 14 days, you won't be allowed into the space as well. And then, of course, when you're in the space, observing all social distancing rules. Nobody can stand within 6 feet of one another. Of course, face, mouth, and nose covering, a mask of some sort while you're here in the space. The other big piece of that is cleaning. We disinfect these floors, the walls, the mirrors, the doors, the music stands, the pianos every morning. And in fact, every morning we flush the space with 100% outside air, which certainly contributes to helping with the virus. And then when somebody comes into the studios, we also give them a set of cleaning supplies as well. So before they sit at a table or sit on a chair, we encourage them to wipe it down. And also when they leave, even though we're cleaning up between each session as well, we want to make sure that we're operating in an abundance of caution to keep everybody safe.
Amazing, amazing. The Phoenix Theater Company also did their fair share of creating masks for hospitals, for schools, and for staffs of other arts organizations around the valley. Let's take a clip and hear firsthand from some of our employees on how they were able to help this COVID relief time.
When the COVID pandemic hit, the costume shop at the Phoenix Theater Company wanted to do our part to cover Phoenix and other communities in need. This effort was spearheaded by Victoria Widener, our stitcher, who went through our fabric storage, including that both previously purchased for shows and fabric that had been generously donated by our patrons to find cottons suitable for the cause. This fabric was washed and dried both for sanitation reasons and to pre-shrink it. Much of this was given to Kathleen Trott, the costume shop manager over at Arizona Opera, who headed up a large effort to make masks for communities in New York, Nevada, Texas, and Arizona. A contact of hers in the theater community actually developed a pattern for N95 face covers that was approved by healthcare professionals, so this was critical while PPE was in short supply. Although Victoria was only a minuscule contributor to this effort, this team of costumers made over 1,500 masks and scrub caps to donate. Otherwise, Victoria and others partnered with local costume individuals to make masks to donate them to people in need. Carrie Smith, who designed many of our past productions, including Elf, Kinky Boots, and West Side Story, was one of the organizers of this effort. Under this umbrella, a team of local costume makers sent 500 masks to the Navajo Nation, 200 to Gompers, which is a local school for the developmentally disabled, 75 masks to Banner Thunderbirds NICU, 100 to Banner Estrella, 100 masks to an ER in Virginia, 100 masks to an animal hospital in Florida, and 150 and many more masks to local individuals in need. With Cece Sickler, who coordinated costumes for The Sound of Music and Avenue Q, Victoria and others made masks to go into the Maricopa County Hospital system. Here, an effort was made to construct masks that could have an insert for a filter. So in this process, Victoria cut and finished pieces of densely woven fabric to be used as inserts for masks sent to hospitals. During this effort, costume and stitching people in the Valley shared materials. The costume community really came together to share elastic, wire, and wire for nose pieces, cotton linings, and all the materials that ran short in places like Joann's and where shipping time was really delayed. We have also donated masks to local businesses that were still operating as essential, including veterinary hospitals, educational facilities, and the like. Happily, we have also created a store of masks for the Phoenix Theater Company to include a stock for our staff, any of our run crew. So basically our employees, anyone involved in the rehearsal process, we're trying to, create the personal protection needed that we can all get back in the space and get back to work.
It's amazing how quickly artists jump to wanting to help with this COVID relief. The spirit, the energy, the focus, the passion to want to help has always been at the heartbeat of an artist. Would you not agree?
Yeah, and I absolutely. I think it's show people in a way it's in our DNA to improvise. In live theater, anything can happen. A set piece may break down, an actor may drop their line, and so we're sort of programmed, I think, to just figure out a way to save the show or save that moment. And so it only makes sense that in this moment when the world shut down, that show business people stepped up to say, I know how to save that, I can improvise this. And remarkable to me that everybody in the theater community around the world has figured out ways to assist during this terrible time.
Well, I know that in our case, they created a pattern and they were able to just jump in like they were creating a new outfit for somebody. All of the sewing machines immediately went into to work. What was it like to have that first day in the factory?
It was wild to me because the studio is normally just singing and dancing, and so I remember taking a picture of the factory. We had it all set up just before everybody came in, and I was just remarking this is so wild. We're setting up like a factory in here, and I actually flashed back to my days as a kid. My father, when I was growing up, had a factory. He used to make gym bags and backpacks, and every summer I was required to work at the factory in one job or another. And so I have flashbacks to as a kid working at my dad's factory. And so all along the way, it's been amazing to remember the things that my dad taught me, that I learned from working at my dad's factory. And we've put that into practice here. And, even though we're not professional gown makers or PPE makers, everybody had a specialty and knew what they were doing. The stitchers knew what they were doing, and those who were shipping stuff knew what they were doing. And we quickly, made a method that worked for everybody. It's been pretty remarkable to learn.
So ladies and gentlemen, why don't we take a look at this factory as it was creating these gowns, and so you can see firsthand how these artists put their energy behind the creation and changed this, what was a rehearsal studio, into a factory to help first-time responders. Take a look. Well, now I'd like to pivot one more time, Jeff. You created something remarkable called the Singer's Mask. Where did you come up with this idea? And tell us a little bit about it. Then we're going to take a look at a video of the Singer's Mask.
Sure. I suppose, like most things that get created, it's really out of necessity. You know, having worked at, you know, our studio's never shut down, so we've been operating it as an essential business for 6 months, and I've been wearing a mask for 6 months, and so I've had fabric against my face for so long, and you know, in my former life was a singer, and I was always like, oh, I just hate having fabric, you know, right here. And so as I started reading about people going back to school and people, you know, we're trying to get rehearsals going here, I thought, wouldn't it be great if we came up with a way for a mask of some kind that people could actually open their mouth and take a big breath without breathing in the fabric. So one of the project managers that worked on the gowns with us is a wonderful costume designer, Broadway costume designer, Robin McGee. And I said to her, could you help me come up with some prototypes? And so she and I worked together and we designed this thing called the Singer's Mask, which has an internal structure that, you know, captures the droplets and captures, you know, the things that are unsafe, but it keeps the internal structure, keeps the fabric away from your mouth so you can take a big breath and you can open your jaw and really do your thing while still being protected with the mask.
Excellent, excellent. Let's take a look at the Singer's Mask in action. So, Jeff, is this mask proving to be successful? And like, how many have you sold so far?
Over 100,000 already, and we've been only just over a month and a half, and we're making them as fast as we possibly can. You know, they've been, you know, everybody's trying to find a way to rehearse again and find a way to get in the same room, and so classes and voice teachers and choirs are all, you know, utilizing it. And so it's been wonderful to see people are sending me videos every day of their choir wearing the mask. It's pretty wonderful to see everybody find a way to create art in some way.
So it has been successful in your opinion?
Yeah, very much so.
I want to take a look at another video of watching this mask actually in action with a choir that you and see them in rehearsal and how they're handling the rehearsal process as well as utilizing this mask. It's great.
Yes, yes. High fives all the way around.
So Jeff, what's your next project and how will COVID affect you going about it?
Yeah, well, I think, this it will affect, I think, everything that we do. I'm now looking into, I'm directing a few shows coming up this year. And so, we're in the process now designing the set and talking about costumes. And now we have a thought towards, not just the final product, about what the experience we want the audience to have, but the process by which we'll be able to, hold those rehearsals and do it. And also, a lot of what I'm thinking about is audiences and their comfort level, A, being in the space, and B, if you see a love story, or how comfortable are we going to feel when people get close to one another and they're about to kiss. I think we all sort of have this feeling about, you got to be 6 feet away from each other. So working as a director and a choreographer certainly changed my thought process about things that I never thought about. Intimacy and being close to one another is normally, thought of as a good thing. And so in this case, we have a very different point of view in terms of that presenting a level of danger that we haven't considered before. So directing things has been really interesting. I've also been producing and directing a series of Broadway concerts. Right here in the studio, we turned our studios into basically a cabaret space. So that presented an interesting set of challenges too, where we've had a socially distant audience, and we created dividers between each of the audience members. So each audience member basically sits in their own little cubicle. They sit 20 feet away from the performer on the stage. So that really brought up a lot of interesting, questions just in terms of safety. When the artist comes in and they do their sound check, the last person to touch the mic, then you have to sanitize it. And then if the artist needs an adjustment, they've got to do it because nobody else can go in and touch that microphone. So it's been an interesting set of challenges.
I can well imagine. Well, we too, as we go back into rehearsal, there are a number of protocols that need to be put in place. We have to, when the artists arrive, their temperature has to be checked. Obviously, there are masks that they need to wear throughout the rehearsal process. We keep the artists together in pods, so they don't interact. A small group of them are together. They don't interact with any other members of the crew or other individuals associated with with the production itself. Clean airflow happening. In our case, we're coming into some wonderful weather on the outside, so we'll be able to open the doors and actually have free-flowing outside air throughout the rehearsal process as we, and this is just a few of the protocols that will be put in place to assure the safety of the artists, as well as looking at all of the protocols going forward as we are moving towards opening an outdoor stage during the later fall and throughout the spring that we're very, very excited about bringing to our patrons, and hoping that they will feel so much more comfortable in an outdoor space, etc. And all the protocols that you were talking about, as far as safety is concerned, when you were talking about the cabarets that you're doing in the Open Dress studio.
Yeah, it's been interesting to figure out along all the guidelines from the CDC, and also, part of it is the psychology of, just feeling safe, and the audience just feeling safe and knowing and understanding and trusting that we're following those protocols. It really is an interesting challenge.
I think the psychology plays a very important role. If you feel safe within the area that you're in, your comfort level will, be apparent. And you'll relax into enjoying the experience. So when COVID, or the threat or fear of it, passes us, and we get back to a sense of normal, what kind of protocols do you think will remain in place or what kind of operational things do you think will remain in place post-COVID?
So I really hope that one of the things that continues on is the idea of wearing a mask. when you're feeling sick or otherwise afflicted. I love the idea of wearing a mask to protect others that are around us. There are other cultures, that do this around. But I remember in New York when the mask mandate first went down, I made a little mask from a T-shirt at home. I didn't put it on because I thought, oh, nobody's going to do it. And I walked out the front of my building, only to discover that everybody is wearing a mask. So I reached out in my pocket, put on the mask, and now for the last 7 months, that's the norm. And so I really do hope that our sensitivity to others, passing germs from one to another will continue, because who knows what the next thing could be.
What would you say to us as a populace as we move forward? What do you think we have learned from COVID-19?
That's a great question. I think the one thing that I know I have learned, that I think we hopefully have all learned, is a greater appreciation for art. We artists who have certainly missed being in the room and creating, I know on a daily basis, I have missed it more than I've ever missed anything. And just, you take for granted, show people are always the last ones to go down. The show must go on. Somebody's sick, so the understudy goes on. There has never, ever been a time when when the show hasn't gone on. And this is the first time ever that the show just simply, the only way to get through it is to stop. And so my gratitude for the ability that I have to be in the arts and to create. And then also, and during this time when we've all been locked away in our homes and our apartments, I've watched so many Netflix series, I've watched so much TV, and that's art, it's because of art. If we didn't have any of those things, even during the lockdown, we would be lost. And so art matters, and art will find a way to return. And I know that it may be slow going as we regain safety protocols and find a way to get together. But I know audiences, people are craving the experience of coming together in a dark room and experiencing somebody's journey, to see somebody fighting against all of the odds. And that's what I love about art. And I know that art will find a way to find its way back there.
Hear, 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 hear. Yes, I think for sure, I've often said of late that the very thing that is the heartbeat and the DNA of an artist is to be able to provide comfort, solace, escapism, meaning, joy, is the very thing that we cannot do right now. And our hearts are aching because of that. So I know that Jeff, you and I, and every artist on this planet all share the same thing, and that is for us to return to you, our patrons, and bring you art again, and joy, and a way of socialization that is meaningful, is escapist, is joyful. We cannot wait until that day arrives. We are working diligently, day and night, to find the safest way of returning to you. So we look forward to seeing you all, our patrons, at our outdoor theater coming up in the fall. And to Jeff, I cannot wait to have you back out here again and to see your projects moving forward. Thank you so much for this time. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you learned a lot today about singers' masks and COVID relief and protocols, etc. All things that we never thought that we'd ever have to think about. And you're right, Jeff. I know that COVID-19 will have changed us forever, and some of the protocols that we have set into place will certainly move forward in the aftermath of all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on Behind the Curtain with Jeff Whiting. Thank you, sir, for being a part of our life and for giving us all that you give. Appreciate you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.